Hi, this is Jack from University of Michigan, and today I'm going to present my paper, Performance Characterization and Call Reliability Problem Diagnose Support for Voice over LTE. And this is a joint research together with T-Mobile US, and thanks for the contributors in the paper in the author list. And the views presented in this paper do not necessarily reflect any position of T-Mobile. The mobile data network is evolving very fast, and we are experiencing more faster and faster data speed. And however, the default voice call applications we use provided by the operators are still remain circuit switched for several decades and until very recently, which is a waste of bandwidth, and it also makes the voice call unable to benefit from the growing coverage and speed of the LTE data network. So to move to a data-centric world, the worldwide operators are actively deploying a new type of telephony service called Voice over LTE. So what is Voice over LTE? It is a new service that enables the voice service to be delivered as data flows over the LTE network. Prior to VoLTE, all the application data are transmitted through the packet switch network and exchanged with the internet, while the voice calls are all made through the circuit switch network. And with VoLTE deployed, it can enable the voice traffic also being delivered as data packets, which means that the voice packets will be transmitted side by side together with the application data and exchanged with the internet through the packet gateway. Obviously, it provides great opportunity for operators since it can reduce the management cost. They don't need to manage both packet switch core and the circuit switch core. However, the benefit for the user is not that clear. First, one major challenge for the VoLTE is to guarantee the performance. Differing from the circuit switch network, where dedicated resources are allocated for each connections. In the packet switch network, there may be congestions along the transmission paths, which makes it harder to guarantee the quality of experience. To address this challenge, operators dedicated a radio barrier for the VoLTE service, which can provide the performance guarantee on a certain level. For example, a minimum available bit rate and a maximum one-way transmission delay. A radio barrier can be considered as a pipe between the user device and the gateway, which can have can apply some traffic prioritization to guarantee the quality of service. And another very important reason for us to validating the performance of VoLTE is that because the operators have an ambitious goal of completely replacing the legacy call with VoLTE, so that it is very important to understand what is whether the performance of a deployed VoLTE service satisfies users' requirements. However, from many sources, we know that the VoLTE service in the current stage of deployment is highly unsatisfying, especially some reliability problems such as high call drop rate, high call setup failure rate, and many audio problems. And moreover, due to the complexity of VoLTE, the diagnosis of such problems becomes much more difficult. The complexity comes from the rich device network interactions and the multiple layers interactions on both device and network side, and also it comes from some mobility support and the call continuity support to deal with the LTE coverage constraints. And however, the existing approaches adopted by all the operators highly depends on the user tickets. So the problems always comes from users' complaints. And this information provided by the tickets are not only subjective, but also coarse-grained, which is not easy for the diagnosis. In view of these challenges, we make our problem statement we want to address in this work that first, there is a lack of sufficient understanding of the QoE deployed of the deployed VoLTE services. We want to know that whether the deployed VoLTE services, how its performance compared with the legacy core and its competing technologies, which are those VoIP services such as Skype and Hangout. And second is there is no effective support to capture and diagnose those VoLTE problems, and we want to provide such a bridge as this gap. And know that we focus on the quality of experience, which is a user-centric metric, and it describes the quality as seen by the end user. Compared with some QoS metrics such as network, the call setup time perceived by the network, we study for example, the user perceived call setup time, which is the time between the user press the call button and the time when the call screen pops up on the callee's phone, which is more accurate to describe an end user's experience. And the outline of the rest of the talk is first I will give a very quick introduction about our measurement efforts, including a methodology overview and a brief result summary. And later we will focus on the diagnosis support we provided for the VoLTE reliability problems, including a tool called Audio Quality Monitor, which can capture the audio experience related problems, and these problems covers 3 major types of symptoms reported by end users. And also I will introduce the stress testing and the cross-layer diagnosis approach. And finally, I will give a case study of how we use our support to diagnose the problem behind an up to 50 seconds muting caused by the miscoordination between 2 different standards. We study the VoLTE services provided by the 3 major US operators and compare it with its predecessor, which are the legacy call, and also its competitors, which are Skype and Hangout Voice. And the metrics we study can be found in our paper, and we map the end user experience to those quantifiable performance indicators so we can characterize. And we did empirical quantification and comparison based on the network traces collected from the experiments. And to give a very quick summary of the results, we found that VoLTE meets our expectation in terms of many performance metrics. VoLTE delivers excellent audio quality with low bandwidth requirement, less user perceives call setup time, and won't be affected by background traffic due to the barrier isolation. However, we also found that the reliability of the VoLTE service is still lags far behind the legacy call, which is shown as a 5 times more higher call drop rate and 8 times higher call setup failure rate. And moreover, we realize that the limitation of our measurement study is that not all the VoLTE problems can be captured by our traffic-based analysis. Some VoLTE problems, such as audio problems, if we don't actively listening during the test, we are not aware of them. So we are then motivated to devise a tool to capture all these VoLTE problems more accurately. So we devised a tool called Audio Quality Monitor, which uses an audio channel to detect QoE problems in real time. And it can successfully detect 3 types of VoLTE reliability problems, including the audio experience related problem, such as muting, garbled audio, intermittent audio, or one-way audio, and also call setup failure and unintended call drop. Here is how the audio quality monitor works. during an active VoLTE call, it will sample the audio stream of the call, and by applying some simple heuristics, it can detect different types of problems. And it also comes with a context collector, which can collect the problematic context and provide essential information for the backend to understand the root cause. It is implemented based on the Android audio record API, and by tuning some parameters such as sampling rate and some different thresholds, we can achieve high accuracy on different models of devices, and the energy overhead is also minimal. And we argue that it is complementary to the traffic-based approach and has certain advantages. For example, it is much closer to user experience because it directly samples the audio and can detect some problems that cannot be exposed by the traffic-based analysis. For example, the problems happen with audio encoding and decoding module. And second, it is easy to deploy because to directly access the network traffic from mobile device is impossible. You need to route your device, and the audio quality monitor doesn't require root access, which can make it easier to be deployed and can be used as a useful diagnostic tool for operators to understand their end users' experience. And more importantly, we want to understand the underlying causes of the problems we captured. We take the stress testing approach, which is we built the stress testing environment in the Terrace lab setting, where we can get access to all the network nodes, can collect logs from them, and also can control them. By programmatically control all these nodes, we can simulate different network conditions and also different network events, such as inter-radio access handover. And the motivation to do this is we want to gather more critical logs, which can only be accessed in the lab setting. And also, we assume that by doing the stress testing, we can reproduce more problems. And and all the testing devices in the stress testing will be loaded with the audio quality monitor, so the problems can be detected in real time, and all the associated context information will be uploaded to the cross-layer diagnosis. We apply the cross-layer diagnosis to understand the root cause, which will investigate the interactions in both control and data plane, and between the interaction between device and network, and also across multiple layers. For example, all the logs will be extracted from the network nodes and device, and will be divided into control plan logs and the data plan logs. And for example, for control plan, our diagnosis will check the integrity of the flow with the 3GPP specifications. If a certain violation is found, it will report the error to the collaborative diagnosis, where network log will also be taken, which enable us to also identify problems that originated by the faults from the network side. And it will output the potential causes. Here I will give a case study of how we diagnose the up to 50 seconds audio muting problem. This problem is first captured by our audio quality monitor during the stress testing. And from the context information, we found that it is always triggered by some signal strength degradation. And by analyzing the control plan log, we found that it is because the radio link layer fails to recover after some radio link failure. However, the higher level application layer will wait for a very long time, which causes this long muting. And we deduce the root cause as a gap between the radio link layer timeout and the RTP timeout. The graph shows the two layers we mentioned. The upper one is the application layer and the RTP layer, which has a higher timeout. And the later one is the radio link layer, which contains the RRC as a control plane and the RLC as a data plane. Here is how the problems happen. So during an active VoLTE call, if during certain problem, for example, loss of coverage, a radio link disconnection will happen, and the RLC layer will start retransmission. However, after a certain threshold, the transmission will stop, and the radio link failure will be reported to the control plane RRC layer. And the RRC will immediately start a re-establishment. However, after another timeout, it will go to the RRC idle, and the call will never recover again. However, if we look at the upper layer, the call will not drop until RTP timeout is reached. And this one has a recommended minimum value in the RFC standard, which is 330 divided the bandwidth. And we found that all the operators actually follows this recommendation. And the radio link layer recovery time calculated from all these timeouts are less than 5 seconds. However, the operators implements the RTP timeout as 30 to 50 seconds for different operators. This gap between these two timeouts causes this audio muting problem. We deduce the root cause as the RTP layer makes the wrong assumption on radio link layers failure recovery. And the root cause is the gap between the RTP defined in the RFC and the RRC protocol defined in the 3GPP. And we also recognize that the similar cause will also cause problem in the Skype and Hangouts, those VoIP applications. And we suggest the device to report the radio link layer events directly to the upper layer. So some remedial solution can be taken in the real time to drop those unrecoverable calls. And also it will benefit further problem diagnosis. And we also have discovered other cases which can be found in the paper. The limitation of our diagnosis support is first the coverage issue. Since we are just producing the problem in the lab setting, so they are not directly from the end users. So we may not cover every problem that's experienced by the end user. And also, we cannot validate that whether it is the same root cause we identified that causes the end user's problem, because we are only matching the symptoms. And the second limitation is that the diagnosis is still not fully automated. For example, the control plane check that checks the flow integrity with the 3GPP specification still requires large amount of manual efforts. And we want to address it in the future work. And next, I will will describe our ongoing future follow-up. So we are currently working on exposing radio link information for QoE problem diagnosis. And the thing we want to do is to have the device reported those hidden radio link layer informations to the application layer, so that it can enable some real-time actions to be taken to deal with problems, and also providing essential information for the backend to diagnose the problem. We give it a name called echolocate, which is echo device information back to the network set to locate the problem accurately. And we are currently closely working with OEMs to make this happen. Another is to adding the diagnosis support into protocols. We found that many protocols that involved with end-to-end communications may not provide sufficient information for the problem diagnosis. For example, a user from its own side cannot know when experiencing a problem, it doesn't know whether it is come from itself or from the other party. So we are investigating the possibility of adding more diagnosis support to the existing protocols, such as the SIP. And so to summarize our work, we performed the first systematic study of VoLTE QoE in the commercial deployment and recover the core reliability uncover the core reliability problem. And second, we provide the diagnosis support for VoLTE to capture, collect, and understand different types of VoLTE problems. We are trying to pushing the standard to make the diagnosis in the cellular network much more easier. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay.